good afternoon to my all dear co-interns. Here is a small announcement for you all. After Q&A section, we are going to take a group photo. So please open up your cameras after Q&A section. Now welcoming you to the Research Cafe series, episode 9. I am your host Nihita and you are listening to the Research Cafe series, initiative to the Research Climates Innovation and Ideation Club. In this episode, we will start off by getting to know about our honorable guest speaker, Samriddhi ma'am, our guest today, a dynamic project research scientist at ICMR NIH and Deputy Director of Academics at Climate Research Solutions. She leads a pivotal trial on hydroxyurea's efficacy in treating sickle cell disease in India and distinguished graduate of Manipal College of Pharmaceutical Sciences and GGI Impact MBA scholar. Samriddhi ma'am is a forefront for healthcare innovation. Her impressive tenure at IQVIA RDS saw her excel in drug safety and mentor upcoming professionals. She authored groundbreaking research on valproic acid-induced normal pressure, hydrocephalus, and conducted significant studies on esophageal cancer. Samriddhi ma'am leadership shines as the former chairperson of Good Pharmacy Practice Education and vice president of Manipal Student Council. Her public health initiatives have transformed lives of people, benefiting thousands through healthcare and awareness camps. Welcoming ma'am.
Kind of you to say all this, but yes, it's a start. Okay.
Now let's start with our questionnaire. The first section
before you start, I just want to say I think this is the first time I'm interacting with all the interns officially. So I'm very excited. Let's hope we have a lot of interaction and a lot of questions as well from them. So yes, we can start.
Now the questionnaire begins with personal journey. Ma'am, can you share a bit about your early life and educational background? What inspired you to pursue PharmD?
Okay, so I think this is, I think every Indian has the same dream of becoming a doctor, and then ends up in different other fields. So that was a similar case with me. I wanted to become, get into medicine. Didn't get in, and then I found PharmD luckily through my friends, because I think in 2014 when I joined, it was quite new. We didn't have a lot of knowledge on the courses. We just knew that okay, there's something clinically related. It was we didn't know we had a lot of we don't know what kind of prospects you have with PharmD. So but still I looked into the course because one of my friends took it, thank God to her, and then I looked into it. I thought okay, so if it's not medicine, at least it's quite close to what I want to do with drugs and stuff. So then finally I joined MCOPS, that is Manipal College of Pharmaceutical Sciences, with that mind, and so far it's been good. Thank God.
So you also share the same story as many students.
Yes, all I think most of us have the same story from what I've heard from so many people. And early background, I'm basically from Bangalore, Karnataka. That's where I did my schooling and college, 11th, 12th for ISEWA, and then 6 years in Manipal.
Long journey.
Yeah.
Now, second question is, how did your experience at Manipal College of Pharmaceutical Sciences shape your professional journey?
Okay, so first 3 years in PharmD, as most of us know, it's the same studies, this, that, blah, blah. It's never ending, one after the other. So I actually started, that was fine. Studies is part of your curriculum. You have to do it, right? So, but other than that, I really started getting out, meeting people, getting into extracurricular activities and all that in my 4th, 5th and 6th year, where we had a little bit of time to explore, understand what it is. Our studies was a little less hectic, right? So one thing that I can say is how did it shape my career journey is few of the projects I did, this case report that I was writing, my thesis in my 5th year, all of them was, you know, inclined me towards getting into research. But I think the most important part, I think, was becoming the vice president of the student council, because I also had, like many of you, I'm sure, had a problem of public speaking. I used to get scared. Oh my god, so many people are listening. What do we do? Blah blah. So still, I went ahead. I contested. I won. And after that, 1 or 2 speeches. After that, I was okay. Try, always say try, and then you'll get there where you want to be. So I think that really helped me becoming part, because once you're part of a student council, this is for all of you, if you can, just try and get into all these extracurricular activities as well, because that's where you actually get your personality developed. And I always say, once you have your personal development, career development always follows, right? So you know what you want to do, you have your niche areas, you develop each and every skill slowly and steadily, and you'll get there. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, ma'am, you answered. My next question is, were there any significant experiences or mentors during your education that influenced your career path?
Yes, I wouldn't say mentors, and yes, but throughout the time till now, one significant thing that I always try to keep in mind is, and this is for all of you as well, you should treat your career as this is something that I learned from, I read somewhere, or someone had told me, or I read it, I'm not sure, but they said treat your career as a marathon and not a sprint. I hope you guys know what a sprint is. It's like a 100-meter race, right? So treat your career as a marathon. Don't just look for short-term goals. Look long-term. See where you want to be. Acha, chalo. You get this, fine, okay, this is where I want to be. No. See your long-term goals, and then start making your short-term goals to make sure you reach your long-term goals. So always think of your career as a long-term path. Most of us have an habit of thinking of, chalo, this one I'll get yahan se yahan pahunchu, bahut hai. In this, acha, chalo, let me get this job. Chalo, let me start here. Let me do that. Let me start here. No. Have confidence in yourself. Wait if you have to, and so I think that is one thing that has stuck with me, that dialogue. That's what I keep to follow.
So, mantra.
Yes.
So, ma'am, but usually keeping long-term goals, it is difficult to stay persistent and
very true. Very
most of
true.
the
I
student,
understand. Correct. I understand. Sorry, please complete your question.
Most of the students procrastinate a lot, like me. So, how do you stay persistent in achieving your goals?
Okay, telling you. Yeah. So I was telling, having long-term goals, at least especially early in your stage at your student level, is very difficult. Okay, obviously you don't know what you want to do. You have to explore, keep exploring, find few things. But when I say long-term goals, at least have in mind that where you want to start and how do you want to go about it. Long-term goals, I don't mean at the end I know this is what I want to be. That is fine. That is what you'll be moving towards, and you'll get that a little bit later. But at your stage, it is better to explore where your journey is. That's why I said all these courses, all these skill development is important. So it will help you find your niche areas or whatever you're interested in to begin with, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And to stay persistent, it is very difficult, I agree, but do it. It's like an habit. Once you do it, you get used to it. And if you like what you're doing, it's never a compulsion, right? It's always comes back to passion, so you automatically get to do it.
Yes.
I love to do it.
So finding ways is one of the solution.
It's exploring is very important at your stage, like, see, now we have lots and lots and lots of resources where you can go and see what you want to do. Talk to people, networking. I don't mean like, oh, I have 1,000 connections on LinkedIn. No, that's
Yeah.
not going to help you. Having 20,000 connections also won't help you, as long as you start talking to people, understand what they're doing,
Yeah.
see, understand, and go to all these conferences. Try talking to people who, at least, who you think you can live up to. Try talking to them. They'll have 110 ideas that they can give you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. So moving on to the next section, from research to life, navigating the world of research. Ma'am, everyone in their childhood, even once, they would have dreamed of becoming scientists, like Krishna Mehta, who played a scientist role by Hrithik Roshan from movie Krish. I hope you saw the movie Krish.
Yes, absolutely.
So he seems always involved in the research and remained focused 24/7, that he didn't know that his kid has ultimately become a superhero. So my question to you, ma'am, is you're an ICMR scientist. So do all scientists be the same stereotype shown in movies, or they will be different in real life? And what motivated you to enter this field?
I think I am a prime example in front of you. Do you think I am like a scientist movie? I'm not comparing myself to great scientists, of course, but I'm still in the starting stages.
But
So
mostly when we heard the word of scientist,
I
it
know it
reminds
looks
me the
very
movie.
nerdy. It's like, oh, they're very focused.
Yeah.
It's not like that. It's always, see, what I believe is, if you have to get into research and actually become a scientist, you need to have passion for science, right? And when you have passion, it's always fun to work,
Yeah.
and the people around you also make it fun to work around. We'll come to that question, Ramya, soon.
Okay, ma'am. The next question to you is, can you provide an overview of your current role and the research projects you're working on at ICMR NIH?
Sure. The project that I'm currently working on is to see if hydroxyurea 10 versus 20 mg will give 10-20 mg sickle cell disease. So the normal dosing is 20 mg per kg per day, right? And you can go up to, with hydroxyurea and sickle cell disease, you can go up to 35. But there are cases where patients can't come to, in tribal areas especially, they can't come to hospitals every day, have this thing. They have, and obviously hydroxyurea is mainly for the oncology drug, right? So it's going to have its side effects, and you can't monitor all of them, right? It gets very difficult. So we're going to see if a lower dose is going to have the same efficacy and effect as the standard dose.
Basically, I don't have an idea about your project, but I understand what you had given the answer. The next
now,
question.
what I told, I'm clear, right? I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Actually, no.
Okay, let me try putting it this way. So now 20 mg per kg per day is a standard dose for sickle cell disease. Okay. So now with 20 mg, there are patients who have a lot of adverse events with this, and and hydroxyurea is normally for a cancer treatment. So they have myelosuppression and all that. So it gets difficult for patients to come to hospital, get monitored and all that, right? When they have these adverse events, they have to get hospitalized and all that. So we're trying to see if a lower dose can give you the same effect as 20 mg, but with lesser side effects. Basically, that is it.
Okay.
I hope now it's a little bit more clear. Yeah.
Ma'am, next question is, there is a saying coming from many generations, failure is stepping stones to success. So ma'am, what are those failures in your life that taught you valuable lessons?
Okay. what failures taught me a valuable lesson. So one of my earlier time when I was doing a study, we didn't realize that we needed a control. So we didn't take a control in the study when we were comparing. I'm just giving you an example. I'm not going to tell you the entire study, but I'm telling you one of the mistakes that I did was we didn't take control. So the project didn't exactly make a lot of sense for us to publish, to write, for all that reason. So what I'm trying to say to you guys is, when you're doing a project or when you are planning to do, see the end goal. Understand what is the primary focus of your research, what you want to do. See whatever part of it is required, so that do enough research for you guys to know that you'll at least have good enough results at the end of it. Right? So that's what I learned, I think. Do proper research before you get into your research.
Next, you had an experience as drug safety associate at IQVIA for 2 years. So, could you share your work experience along with valuable insights which foster your career?
Okay, so yes, it was 2020 when I joined IQVIA. It was nice work from home. Started with that. I think in September 2020, I started in IQVIA. It was my first job. I was very excited because obviously first job. So then, and the experience was, yes, we got to do our literature reviews to look for case reports, find adverse events from all these case reports, from literature reviews, from all articles. We also used to do so we had a client, I'm not going to name it, but we had a client whose all their adverse events in the market before trial mein jo hai, and even after post marketing surveillance that we do, which used to be reported from clinicians, pharmacists all over the world, and even patients from all over the world used to come to us. We used to process it, and there are two levels, right? So there is intake, QC, and all the different levels. So I was part of the intake team, where you have to see if it's identifiable adverse event with patients, with dogs, all that, and find adverse event from the literature reports. That's what I used to do. And yeah, I think that's about it. And how did it help me? Because, well, I got to learn a lot about adverse events for different drugs. We get to see a lot of cases, right, when you're processing. So it may be related, unrelated, but at least you get to see a pattern there. So yes, you get to see a lot of drugs, and then that helped me get my current role as well.
Really great experience. And next question is, can you share a memorable experience from mentoring trainees that had positive impact on your professional journey? And what advice would you give to freshers entering the field of drug safety?
Okay. When you say mentees, you mean when I was in IQVIA? When I was in IQVIA, you mean? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, memorable experience. I think this. One thing is, one good thing about mentoring is when you mentor, you also get to, or at least explain something to someone. I wouldn't say mentor, but when you get the chance to explain something to someone, you yourself understand it a lot better, right? So that's my advice to you also. If you want to understand a subject really well, start teaching it to others. You'll get to understand it a lot better. And my advice for people who want to start into drug safety: really understand which part of safety you want to be. And if it is, see, pharmacovigilance is not for everyone, according to me, from what I understand or from what my experience has been. It's not for everyone. You really need to understand if that is what you want to do, if that is where you want to be. Just because it's there and it's a good field to get into, no, find out if it is actually your passion, if you actually want to do it. So that would be my advice.
Most of the students don't know what their passion is about. They will
Correct.
still searching, but they don't find what their passion.
So
For those students,
try it. If you like it, fine. If not, move on. That's what in early, see, the thing is, in early in your careers, what I suggest is explore as many as career roles as you can. Okay, you can't change at 40, 45. You're stuck where you are, right? In your early careers, don't worry. Oh, if you know you've tried it, you like it, be there. If you don't like it, start exploring other options. See what else you can like. This is your early career is the only where you can try and fail, take risks, right? Later in your careers, you can't. You still have a lot of chance in your early career to take a lot of risks.
but
Don't play safe early in your careers. Don't play safe.
but ma'am, most of the Indian students fear of taking risks. For those students,
See, if you don't take risks, no, what happens is I don't know how to explain it. Risk taking is still, I understand, is a very challenging thing, and not many are capable also sometimes to take risks. It's not always possible to take I'll take risks. No, take calculated risks. There are risks. You have to decide which kind of risk that you can take. Calculated, uncalculated. Calculated risk, you know this is not what you like. You find another job, shift, right? That is fine. That is still a calculated risk. So you need to decide what kind of risks and what level of risks that you can take, right? And obviously, I would suggest risks are required in life. If you don't take risks, you don't do something different. You're like normal. You want to do something different. At some point or the other point, you'll have to start taking risks.
yes, this is really great piece of advice. Moving on to the next section, innovative research projects, idea to implementation. And now the first question is, could you provide details about your startup weekend project on developing an AI tool for early detection of lung cancer?
Okay, so this was because I was doing an MBA program. We had to do a startup project, or like work on some ideas that we can actually in future implement it and get some money out of it, right? So this idea came to me because I was searching. I knew AI was still
Trending topic.
It will be okay. It's a trending topic. I wanted to see what else we can do. I don't know. I was for this topic, for the startup weekend topic, I was searching. Then suddenly I found this AI being, very obviously it was there at that time. And then I started saying, okay, in healthcare, what does AI bring in, right? So then I started looking into different aspects of it, and I found that AI being able to be used in lung cancer is very good, because you're basically a prediction, right? How you can predict your lung cancer in healthy patients, in their treatment. You have a lot of studies now already, right? So you put in that into AI, it will be able to predict, maybe not now, soon, in few years. We'll let you know. But yeah, So at least, it's a start to help. Instead of waiting till, normally with lung cancer, what happens is you get to know very late, stage 3, stage 4.
Yeah.
It's already too late for it to be treated. It gets very difficult. The side effects, monitoring, all that. It has very bad effects. So the earlier you get to know, the better, right?
Yes.
So getting an early detection with the help of AI is obviously a good thing, and we'll get there, hopefully.
I hope you will get very soon for us. Okay, next question to you is, let's delve into your case reports on valproic acid induced normal pressure hydrocephalus. For our listeners who might not be familiar with this topic, could you explain what normal pressure hydrocephalus is and why it's significant to identify it as an adverse event of valproic acid?
Okay. So I'll tell you why normal pressure hydrocephalus is very significant. First of all, because it, especially with this patient, what happened was he had BPSD, that is bipolar disorder, right? So he was recently started on valproic acid. What happened with BPSD? It's very difficult to know your symptoms. There is already with normal pressure hydrocephalus, what happens is you get delusional, you lose your voluntary controls, right? Your ability to walk changes. All these things happen, and even if it goes on to a later stage, it becomes very difficult to control it as well. So basically, normal pressure hydrocephalus is your CSF, that is your spinal fluid, gets filled into your brain, and then it makes you very delusional. You don't have total control over your senses, right? So that obviously, if it matters, if things are with the brain, you have to take control immediately. So with this patient, it was even more important because he had BPSD. So distinguishing the symptoms of BPSD and of the adverse event of valproic acid was even more important, because most of the symptoms are very similar. Okay, how will you know which is what? So finding that out, obviously we had our clinician doctors who did that, but still doing that is very important, and to understand what was the reason for it was even more important. So we found valproic acid, which was just started 2 months ago, worsened his symptoms, and he had to be hospitalized for it. And then the medication was stopped, and his symptoms actually got better. So I think, yeah. Did I answer your question? Hopefully, I didn't.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I have answered.
If anyone has any other questions, please ask. I feel this is very
important.
Yeah. Not only this, there are so many adverse events that are very important. But yes.
Okay, ma'am, moving on to the next question. How do you ensure your research methodologies are robust and reliable?
Okay. Like I said, do your research properly. Pura, everything from top to bottom, whatever it is on the topic that you want to write on, understand it very deeply. Okay, then only you can write your research protocol, research. Understand what you want. First, define your end game, that is your end point. What is it that you want? Then work backwards. It's actually easier. This is what, even when you do your statistical analysis, that all that comes into mind is what suddenly you realize this parameter is not there when you want to do your statistical analysis, right?
Yeah.
So finding all that out, doing your research properly, read lots and lots of papers on that topic, see what they have done, see what else that you can add to it, that it improves your work.
Ma'am, but most of the students hate reading. For those kind of students, what do you suggest?
See, by reading you mean research articles or
No,
other
research only, ma'am.
research
Because those
articles? Okay. Yes,
articles
I
are very
understand it. When I started, even I didn't like reading. I used to be
yeah,
like, who wants to read that long paper?
yeah,
Okay, but once you start getting interested, it actually becomes, that's when you see with the topic that you like, you'll automatically start reading the entire stuff,
yeah,
right? But what I suggest now is at least read abstracts, right?
yeah,
That is that in that abstract you'll have entire thing of the thing. If you want, if you're interested, go into the depth of it. Otherwise, just leave it and move on to the next one. At least try reading abstracts. Start.
I will definitely take your advice.
Start on the topics that you like. And see, with your project works and all, you don't have any choice. You have to read
Yeah,
and understand. But yes, start reading other abstracts and the ones that you like. Oh, how did they get this result? You'll see. The thing with searching articles, you start with one thing and then you'll end up somewhere totally different.
yeah, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so starting is important. Start with something, then you'll get into your path where you're interested. Search about that. One term you get, you will be like, oh, this is something new. You start searching. So at least start. That's what I'm saying. Start, you'll get there.
This is the second piece of advice I got from you.
Oh,
So, moving on to the next question. In your retrospective study on esophageal cancer, can you give us an overview of the study and its primary objectives?
okay. So this was a retrospective study we did for about 5 years. We went back from the day we started our study 5 years back. We took all the patient records who had esophageal cancer, tried to find out what were their risk factors, especially in since I was in Manipal, so that's a Dakshin Kannada district. So we wanted to see what kind of risk factors especially influence this population, right? Maybe smoking, then smoking, tobacco, all these things, drinking, alcohol, all these modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors. And with women, we found it was mostly they were still using this firewood, no, where you actually have to blow into the fire. So that was few of them had that as a risk factor because they were doing that. They got esophageal cancer in the later stage, but at least they were exposed to that with women especially. And agriculturists, because pesticides, they use a lot of pesticides, so they were also quite prone to this.
So, my next question to you, ma'am, is as the principal investigator, what were your main responsibilities and how did you manage such a comprehensive analysis over 1,000 patient case files?
Okay. As principal investigator, it was quite simple because it's still a project study. At that time it wasn't much. So we had to collect our data. We first had to build a protocol. We did protocol first, writing, then got it approved. Then we started with the case report form to collect all the information that we need from patients. Then we went into the record forms, got all the records that we need for the study. Obviously, after ethical approval and everything. That, and then how did we manage? We did it through SPSS. So, 1,000 patients. I understand it's a big number, and there's a lot of missing data as well, right? With these cases, retrospective study, your main problem will be you don't have enough. You can't go back and talk to the patient to get your data. So there will be a lot of missing data as well. So you'll have to account for that. Then SPSS may handle to ho jata hai, but just that when you're entering, you have to make sure that I wasn't alone in the project, right? I had my project partners as well. They were good and they helped me. all of us did it together. Entering is very important because first we did it in Excel and then we imported it to SPSS and then worked. In SPSS again you have to code. That is one more thing. So when you're entering into SPSS or Excel, you need to know what your code. You need to know how you're doing your analysis. If you're doing it through SPSS, you should make your forms in such a way or fill in your Excel sheets in such a way that it is easier for you to analyze. Like yes, no, yeah, severity grading, जो भी है, you have to have that kind of levels which is easier for you to analyze when you put it into SPSS and code. You can't have different terms every time because it gets difficult to give it a name right later in SPSS also when you want to analyze the demographic factors also when you want to see. So having a fixed term for that word is very, very important. Like when you say moderate, mild, all these terms should be fixed. You can't have little, severely more, little, or words like that because that doesn't come under your coding because that will get missed, right? When you're coding mild, for example, I'm saying. Okay, I think I'm confusing you guys.
No,
Yeah?
no.
Basically what I'm trying to say is have a consistent data,
Proper data,
consistent with SPSS so that you can analyze it easily.
yes, we got your answer.
Yeah.
So next question is what are some emerging trends or areas of research in pharmacology and oncology that you find particularly exciting and promising?
Oh, there are lots and lots of stuff these days. Yeah, I mean, like pharmacogenomics, especially in cancer, is crazy, and it is very, very, very important. Personalized medicine, because cancer is a disease, and the drugs for that disease are such that it is going to change your life completely, economically, physically, socially, everywhere, right? So personalized medicine in that is very important. Then again, like I said, AI getting you, and AI is also, it can be used in personalized medicine and so many things. Yeah. So there are a lot of, I have lots of hope on oncology and coming things.
Okay, so AI
There are a
and
few more, but I won't bore you with them. Go ahead.
Okay, moving on to the next
Okay.
question.
Let's see.
So our next
Go
question
ahead.
is, what advice would you give to aspiring researchers who want to initiate their innovative projects?
Okay. First thing is skill development. Okay, and this doesn't come in 1-2 days. Okay, you'll have to practice. Is this supposed to be my last question or is there one more?
No, and still there are few.
Okay, fine. Okay. So, yeah, what advice I would give is, I think that's what I've already covered. Read, start reading, develop the skill of reading, writing. Writing is very important when it comes to research. Start writing your case reports at least. You go on rounds at least one or the other, or review papers. Start writing that, you'll get an idea. That's how you'll start getting interested. In your time, you can start writing your case reports, review articles, talk to your professors. I think they'll be more than happy to give you some or the other opportunity to write.
But ma'am, most of the students feel difficulty in writing articles at their first attempt. So what advice would you give them to start?
Start. You'll get better. It's not like my first paper was amazing. Because anyways, there are professors who will refine it, change it. You'll get an idea, no?
Yeah, but
You're also, at least start writing, you'll get it, you will see. The thing is, once you write, you have a clear idea in your head how you're supposed to write. you write it, then the second time you read it after a few days, no, you yourself will see, acha, acha, these are the changes that you can make,
Yeah.
right? So that's how you get better.
So, ma'am, you had an experience in quality review of case reports and also preparation of manuscripts. So, which most of the students feel difficulty. So, can you share a few tips of reviewing case reports and writing manuscripts?
Okay. See, case reports actually very simple to write. Okay, it's not very difficult. It has very few parts that needs to be included, and basically most of it is writing what happened with the patient. The main discussion part is that. Other things you will have to read from your study, reframe it in your own way, and write it from different studies, and obviously reference the studies. So that's what I said, start with case reports because it's easier to get a hand of, right? Did you say communication as well?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So yeah, review articles also. What happens, most of the you are just reviewing your articles, right? So it's just that you are reading a lot of paper, so you automatically have an idea how you just have to put it in one place, reframe it, right? And obviously reference properly.
Proper reference.
Yes.
Very important. So, moving on to the next
I
section.
think if you have any specific question, I'll be able to answer better. Let's see if anyone has later. For now, go ahead.
Okay. Now moving on to the next section, engagement in science and collaboration and community. So the first question is, your leadership roles include chairperson of Good Pharmacy Practice Education and vice president of Student Council. So how have these experiences shaped your communication and leadership skills?
They've marginally improved all my skills actually, because see, as a vice president, especially in my this thing, what happens is you will have to manage few clubs, like we have the clubs here, right? Same way we used to have clubs in MCOPs as well. So we used collaboration, communication, getting things done on time, talking to people, giving speeches, then time management. All these skills improved through that, and that has helped me ever since.
Next question, ma'am. As a Deputy Director of Academics at Climate Research Solutions, what are your primary responsibilities and how do you balance these with your research activities?
Okay. So that I think Ajit sir has to be thanked, because he's been quite nice, as he's helped me manage both. If I'm not there, he manages, or if there's something, we both somehow manage. So, and yeah, I think main thing is you need to be a little bit organized. Organization is very, 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 very important. So, you have your time, because that's how, even in here, I try to set all the next day meetings the prior day, have a kind of a chart, organized. Next day what is the plan I have to do for my research, where I go, and after come back what I have to do. So once you have a little bit of time, again time management comes into play, your organization skill comes into play. So I think because of that I've been able to
manage. This is the last question. So, how do you approach mentoring and training your young professionals, and what key principles do you emphasize in developing their communication and leadership abilities?
Okay. Like I said, mentoring is, how do I approach it? Like I said, there are a lot of things that you learn when you start. You yourself learn, and there are some things that they teach you automatically that you might not be aware of a lot of things, so, and it's good, no, you get to learn a lot of new things, you get to talk to new people, help them, they also help you in a lot of ways. So yeah, and communication, uh, when you say communication, what do you mean? Public speaking? Yeah, which all?
Usually we have a difficulty when we speak someone who are esteemed persons. So approaching them is somewhat difficulty during the first time of conversation. So how do you face them likewise?
Okay, with communication, what I would say is, uh, with all the people that I've met, all you have to do is approach them. Okay, they themselves will. Has anyone experienced this, that you have so many things in your mind? Oh, aisa hoga, ye hoga. Oh, can we talk? Can we talk? But when you actually do it, it turns out to be lot less, and it's like it goes on very smoothly. Does anyone has experienced this? Please raise your hands. I want to know. Anyone? Aisha. Hi, Aisha. Tell us your experience. Aisha? Hello?
She can't unmute
Oh,
herself.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. Yeah, Aisha, you can go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. Good afternoon. We were having a conference at our hello.
Yes, we can hear you, Aisha. Go ahead.
We were having a conference at our college, and we had some really big speakers come in. So they were from the Indian Pharmaceutical Association, and all of us, like me and my friends, we were really reluctant to go and talk to them. But eventually, like, we mustered up the courage. We went, and as soon as we started talking, it was very easy. Like, it was almost as if we were talking to our own professors.
Most of the time, that's what happens. I always give this example. You remember when we used to, by chance, we are a little bit late. At least this used to happen to me. Sometimes when you're late in school, when you're walking to your class, you're like, oh my god, what will the teacher say? She'll make me stand outside the class. She'll do this. She'll tell, why did you come late? She won't let me enter the class. But when you actually reach there, nothing happens. She just like come. She'll be like, yeah, come in. Right?
Yes.
That's what most of it is built up in our head. And once you actually try doing it, and with these esteemed persons with IC, they are always interested in talking, from what I understand, with new people, because they, again, like I said, it's the same thing. You get to learn something, and they are always interested in learning. So you just go say hi, they'll tell you 110 things on the phone. You don't even have to talk much with them. They'll only give you 110 responses.
Yeah.
You just have to be like, yes, okay. That's what my experience has been, and I hope most of you have had the same. Aisha also.
Ma'am, do you have any tips to
One more thing
reduce
is
overthinking?
Listening is so. I don't think we give enough credit. We say public speaking all this time. Listening is such an important life skill that all of you need to gather. Okay, and that comes with patience. With patience, I think the problem nowadays is everything. You have Instamart, you have Swiggy, you have everything on the tip of your fingertips. People have lost patience. They don't even wait for 2 minutes. They don't want to wait. Internet is so fast, 4G, 5G. Once the internet gets so, we get so irritated, and that happens to me also. If my internet is not working, if I don't get my search results within 2 seconds, I get annoyed with these people, Airtel or whatever. Or BSNL. I should not name, but yeah.
So patience is very important.
Patience is very, 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 very important. Even in your careers, right? Like I said, treat it like a marathon, not a sprint, right? Wait see what happens, give it time. See, everyone is in different phases of their life, and they will be always. No two people have the same career paths, right? So when you see someone else ki oh acha uska they are there, I am here, you get very impatient. But the thing that you need to understand is you have a very different curve that you need to take, and your endpoint might be totally different from what theirs is. So don't compare. Have a little patience, have a little faith in yourself that you can do it. Try and you will get there. I was talking about listening. Listening is very, very, very important, and I don't just mean switching it on and going somewhere else and doing something else. I'm saying listening with concentration, right? Because most of the time we have a habit of we listen to reply, right? When you hear someone, when they are talking, you just want to give some reply, so you listen. Don't do that. Listen to understand what that person is trying to say. It helps in life, it helps in your research, it helps in a lot of places.
So now let's jump into Q&A section.
Yes.
So all my dear co-interns, you can open up your unmute your mics to ask
Please,
questions.
I want them to unmute and ask. I'm not going to read the chats.
Okay, then drop your questions in chat box.
No, I said I don't want to read. I'm not going to read from their chats. They have to speak.
Okay.
This is a way to improve your communication skills.
Okay, I think Ramya CV can unmute yourself and ask your doubt.
Wait, let me see if I'm unmuted. Yes, there are.
Ramya CV. I hope she is there.
Okay, fine. Let me just answer the question.
Yeah. I think Shashank Kumar Sahu is also had a question. You can unmute and ask to ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am,
Hello.
actually, okay, yes, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, I'm considering PhD, but actually, I'm little bit confused. Like, after MPharm, am I going to the job or direct MPharm doing PhD? So, can you tell me about that? What I do?
So you currently finished your B Farm and you want to do your M Farm.
No, ma'am. I'm currently on final year in MPharm.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so you're thinking if after M Farm you should do a job or you should
job
do a
or
PhD.
yes, ma'am. Yes.
See, this is really a personal opinion, okay? Because it differs for everyone. Some people, once they start working, they don't have the thing of getting back into studies because they love the income that they're getting, and obviously once you start earning, you don't feel like going back and studying and getting more. So it's very a personal choice, but I would still suggest work for a while, find a good guide, and then start.
Ma'am, can you tell me about the PhD work schedule? Like what type of, like a 9 to 5 or a little bit more? Like,
I think that is depends on what kind of program you're enrolled. I think Ajit sir would be, because he did his PhD, he would be able to help you there than me. But yes, it'll be still be 9 to 5. It's very hectic. PhD is very, very, very hectic. I can tell you that. Very hectic. Everything depends on your guide, and you have to make sure that you find a very, very, very good guide, understand the research, and your research topic should also be of something that you're interested in. Otherwise you'll get frustrated by the end of it, because it's a hectic program for 5 years, right? So you have to like your research. Don't do PhD just because everyone is doing PhD, we also should do PhD. No. And you understand the need of why you're doing a PhD. What is your end goal? Is that being achieved with this research topic, with this guide? need to understand that and then look into it. Hectic though it will be, but I'm sure it will be
Ma'am,
rectified.
any exam for going to the ICMR, like how you go to the ICMR?
So not this particular project, but there is UGC exam, right, that you'll have to write. But for this one, it was online. It was without any. I didn't have to give any exams, fortunately.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Actually, Ramya had a doubt about, ma'am, after PharmD, how exactly did you get a position in
Okay.
ICMR?
So after my family, I worked about for 2 years in IQVIA as a drug safety associate. Then I was associated with CleanMed for a while. Then I started looking on this ICMR official website. Kept looking for temporary positions, because temporary positions are more easier to get than permanent ones, right? So you start at least there. So I started with that, and then there was this opening. I applied. I had my interviews, and then finally I got it.
I think don't have.
Okay. Are there any more questions? No, seriously? Okay, you can put it in your chat box also. It's fine.
Jayashree have some doubt, I think. Aftab have a doubt, ma'am. Ma'am, how to get job or position in ICMR?
That's what they have their website, right? Keep looking into their website, see what positions you can apply for, and apply. There are few exams that you have to give, but not necessarily. There are positions where you can directly apply and get the position. The current scenario of competitive days and career development, this would be good in terms of job. Okay. Okay. Mohit, what kind of risk? Just give me a second. Yeah. Mohit, what kind of risk? Like something else, investing 3 years to see what one is good for. Okay. See, this is something that you have to do if you want jumping jobs or investing few years to see what one is good for. Okay. One after funding. Okay. You mean like switching jobs is good or not? Is that what you're asking, Mohit? I think if it is something that does not interest you, why do you want to stay there anyways? See, I'll tell you one thing from what I believe, and this is still again a very personal opinion, that you can never be good at something or successful if you're doing something that you don't like or you don't have a passion for. It's very important, at least for me, to have a passion for what I'm doing. So to find that, you might have to see what you like, right? And to see that you at least you have an idea, no, कि this may you like, this field may or like, which part of pharmacy do you like, you want to go into. Start there, understand if that is what you're liking, then continue there. If not, then keep looking. I don't mean switch every 6 months or 9 years change karna. No, stay for at least minimum amount of time that you have to do. That is fine. But I'm saying risk in terms of if you're not liking what you do, what's the point of staying there for long term also? No? So that's what I'm saying. You're thinking short term, okay. Think long term. Where exactly do you want to end up? And if this position will take you there. Mohit, I hope I answered your question. Most of the can't find job we are passionate about. We can develop, but that takes time because it's also only one budget. Yeah. So obviously, or you create your own jobs. Do something that you're passionate about. Yes. Till then, see, why you have to develop. Basically, the thing is, even if you're doing something else, the passionate about job part, what are you passionate about? You need to start thinking about that, develop skills for that job, then obviously you'll get it. If you have the skills, why wouldn't anyone take you, right? So yeah, and this part is also right, that you have to start somewhere. It's not like tumhara first job is only your it should be the best job that you are passionate about. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying start somewhere, understand what it is. That's what I mean when I say explore as in work in those areas. And when you're working, try to develop skills that will help you get your job that you're passionate about. Okay, I hope I'm clear now. Yes, you have to start somewhere, but in that time try to develop skills that help you get the job that you're passionate about. What was the after can I join as a clinical associate? What was the way to get it now? Yes, CRAs, there are a lot of positions in hospitals that are open, although I don't think they pay very well. But like I just said, you have to start somewhere. So, but there are a lot of CRA positions coming up. I haven't looked into it. I don't know how is the CRA openings right now, but there are lot of. Get in touch with someone. You did your family, hope, right? Yes. So in your hospital only see if anyone is looking for CRA, or try looking into different hospitals and see if they are hiring any clinical research associates roles. Sometimes you don't exactly get into CRA roles. You'll have to start with the research assistant position and then you get into a CRA role. So that again depends on which area or which hospital you want to start with.
Ma'am, there is a question from Gautam. Is it a right choice to pursue health informatics after family?
Okay, what is health informatics?
I don't know.
Gautam, tell me. When you say health informatics, what exactly do you mean? Gautam, are you there? The advanced tools in healthcare. Okay. So basically, yes, I think it is a good field now, but pursue as in what? As a course or as a job prospect? How? Learning it is a very good skill that you can have, and it's highly needed now. And it'll have a good this thing as well. Okay.
Okay, ma'am, that's all for. Ma'am, is there any feedback form for this episode? For
Yes,
this?
I was trying to search that.
Okay, that's all for today's episode of Research Cafe series, and heard valuable insights from our guest speaker, Dr. Samriddhi ma'am. I hope you guys had enjoyed today's episode. So stay tuned to the next episode of Research Cafe series. A big thank you to our guest, Dr. Samriddhi ma'am, and thank you to all listeners for tuning in. We appreciate your support. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. Kindly fill the feedback form before the section ends.
Yes, I hope you guys have got some feedbacks for me. And if you have any other questions, we are always available. We have our numbers, so feel free.